The first time he laughed at old men, it was loud enough that everyone in the cafe heard it. He leaned back in his chair, smirked, and said something cruel about gray hair chasing money instead of dignity. And right then, a woman sitting 2 tables away slowly lifted her eyes and looked straight at him. Not angry, not offended, just curious. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and how old are you? And be honest with yourself for a second. Have you ever judged someone by their age and later realized you were completely wrong? Ryan Caldwell had always believed he understood how the world worked. He was 36, sharp-tongued, well-dressed, and convinced that money twisted people into something ugly. Especially, in his mind, older men who suddenly discovered romance the moment a wealthy woman entered the room. He joked about it with his friends, mocked it online, and wore his cynicism like armor. To him, it was obvious. These men weren't in love. They were in survival mode, clinging to comfort before time ran out. At least that's what he told himself. That afternoon, he was sitting in his usual corner spot, pretending to work while people watching. 2 elderly men at the counter were talking excitedly about a charity gala. Ryan leaned over to his friend and whispered something sarcastic about auditioning for a retirement jackpot. They laughed. He felt clever, superior, safe behind his assumptions. That's when the silence shifted. You know that feeling when a room changes temperature without a sound? That was the moment she looked at him. She wasn't trying to be noticed. No flashy jewelry, no dramatic makeup. Just a calm presence, elegant in a way that didn't beg for attention. Silver-streaked hair pulled back neatly, posture straight, eyes steady. She didn't look away when Ryan met her gaze. She held it just long enough to make him uncomfortable, then returned to her tea like nothing had happened. He felt a strange pinch in his chest, like he'd laughed at the wrong moment in a funeral. Her name was Lillian Moore, though Ryan didn't know that yet. What he didn't know even more was that she was one of the wealthiest women in the state. She had built her fortune quietly, deliberately, without headlines or scandals. And at 62, after years of boardrooms and solitude, she had decided on something radical. She wanted love again, not passion that burned fast and vanished, but companionship that stayed. And yes, she was looking for a senior man, someone who had lived enough to value peace over performance. Ryan noticed her again a week later at the same cafe. Same seat, same tea. This time, she smiled at the barista, asked his name, thanked him like his time mattered. Ryan watched without meaning to. There was something about the way she listened to people, like she wasn't waiting to talk next. His curiosity annoyed him. He told himself it was nothing, just another stranger passing through his mental frame. Then fate did what it always does when you're convinced you've got life figured out. It interrupted him. As Ryan stood to leave, he fumbled his phone and it slid across the floor, stopping right by her shoes. She picked it up gently and handed it back with a soft laugh. "These things are slipperier than they look," she said. Her voice wasn't weak or old. It was calm, warm, confident. Ryan muttered a thank you, ready to escape, but she added, "You seem like someone who has strong opinions." He froze. "What makes you say that?" he asked, half defensive. She tilted her head slightly. "People who laugh loudly usually do," she said, not unkindly. "Especially when it's about others." Ryan felt heat rise in his face. For a split second, he considered snapping back, but something in her eyes stopped him. Not judgment, understanding, as if she had already lived through the version of him he was pretending to be. They talked. 5 minutes at first, then 10. She asked about his work, his family, what he thought happiness looked like at 40, at 60. No one had ever asked him questions like that without trying to prove something. He found himself answering honestly, then catching himself, confused why he cared what she thought. Before they parted, she said, "You might be surprised how much life softens with age if you let it." And she left. Ryan went home unsettled. That night, He replayed the conversation over and over. Why did her words stick? Why did he feel like the joke had somehow been on him? Over the next few weeks, they ran into each other often, sometimes planned, sometimes accidental. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into long conversations about loss, about trust, about how lonely success can be when you outgrow everyone around you. Here's where I want you to pause and ask yourself something. If you met someone who challenged everything you believed, would you lean in or would you run? Ryan didn't know it yet, but Lillian was quietly observing him too. She had dated men her age who wanted her money, men younger who wanted her status, and men older who wanted her comfort. She was tired of performances. Ryan's sharp edges intrigued her, but she also sensed the immaturity beneath his confidence. The question was whether he could see past his own prejudice. One evening, as they sat watching the city lights, Ryan made another joke. Something careless about older men, shopping for wives. He laughed, expecting her to roll her eyes. Instead, she went silent. Really silent. The kind that makes your stomach drop. She looked at him then, not curious this time, but firm. "Would you say that if you knew one of those men was my choice?" she asked quietly. Ryan blinked. "Your choice. For what?" "For my life," she said. "For love." The air felt heavy. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He realized in that moment that he had no idea who Lillian really was, and that maybe, just maybe, he was the one being tested all along. Ryan didn't answer right away. He stared out at the lights, suddenly aware of how small his jokes sounded when spoken aloud. Lillian didn't rush him. She folded her hands, waiting as if silence itself was part of the lesson. Finally, he exhaled and said the only honest thing he could manage. "I never thought about it that way." His voice was quieter now, stripped of bravado. "I guess I assumed, I don't know, that it was about money." She nodded, not offended, not defensive. "Most people do," she said. "That's why I don't correct them. I just watch who they become when they think no one important is listening." That sentence followed him for days. It echoed while he worked, while he lay awake at night, while he caught his reflection in glass doors and didn't like what stared back. He started noticing how often he judged before understanding, how easily he dismissed lives he hadn't lived. And the uncomfortable truth settled in. He had mocked old men because he was terrified of becoming irrelevant himself. Their conversations deepened. Lillian spoke about losing her husband years ago, about how grief changes shape but never fully leaves. She talked about building her company from nothing, about boardrooms that went silent when she entered because a woman with authority made people uneasy. Ryan listened, really listened, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he was sitting across from someone who didn't need anything from him. That scared him more than any gold digger ever could. Then came the night everything cracked open. They were at a small charity dinner, one Lillian had insisted was just a community thing. Ryan noticed the way people greeted her, the respect in their voices, the subtle pauses when she spoke. He leaned in and whispered, half joking, "You're kind of a big deal, aren't you?" She smiled but didn't answer. Later, as speeches began, her name was announced as the evening's primary benefactor. The room applauded. Ryan felt the floor tilt beneath him. Afterward, alone on the terrace, he confronted her. Not angrily, but shaken. "You're a billionaire," he said, more statement than question. She met his eyes. "Yes." He ran a hand through his hair, 1,000 thoughts colliding. "Why didn't you tell me?" She didn't flinch. "Because I wanted to know who you were before money joined the conversation." He laughed then, but there was no humor in it. "So what was this? A test?" The word tasted bitter. Lillian shook her head slowly. "It was a choice. I chose honesty about my intentions, not my balance sheet. Just like the men you mock. Some of them choose love quietly, knowing they'll never be believed." Ryan felt exposed. He thought of every joke, every cruel assumption. "And what did you decide?" he asked. His chest tightened as he waited. She took a step closer. I decided you're capable of growth, she said. But I haven't decided if you're capable of humility. That night, Ryan went home alone. He didn't text her. He didn't sleep. For the first time, he questioned whether being clever was the same as being kind. He imagined himself decades from now, hoping someone would see him as more than a punchline. The irony hurt. Days passed without a word. Ryan almost convinced himself it was over when he saw Lillian again at the cafe. Same seat, same tea. This time he didn't smirk. He walked over, nervous, and asked if he could sit. She studied him for a long moment. Tell me something, she said. If I were broke, older, and invisible to the world, would you still be here? He swallowed. I don't know who I would have been before, he admitted, but I know who I want to be now. He didn't promise forever. He didn't plead. He just told the truth about his fear of aging, about how meeting her forced him to confront it, about how respect shouldn't be conditional. Lillian listened, eyes softening. That's the first real answer you've given me, she said. Over time, Ryan met the man Lillian had been considering before him, a retired engineer with laugh lines and steady hands. Ryan expected jealousy. What he felt instead was respect. The man wasn't chasing wealth. He was offering companionship. Ryan finally saw what he had mocked, and the shame of it stayed with him in a good way, the kind that changes you. Lillian eventually chose neither of them right away. She chose herself. She continued seeing Ryan, but on different terms. Slower, honest, without illusions. And Ryan, for once, didn't rush to label it. He learned to sit with uncertainty, to value presence over possession. If you're listening to this and feeling uncomfortable, that's okay. Growth usually starts there. Ryan learned that age doesn't define intention. Money doesn't define love. And mocking what you don't understand only reveals what you're afraid to face. Years later, Ryan would tell this story differently. Not as the time he met a billionaire woman, but as the moment he stopped laughing at lives he hadn't lived yet. And Lillian? She found love too. Not because of her wealth, but because she demanded honesty before admiration. If this story made you pause, if it made you reflect on how you see others or how you hope to be seen one day, take a second to show that support. Like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder, and tell me in the comments what part stayed with you the most. And if you want more stories that challenge assumptions and speak to the heart, don't forget to subscribe. Sometimes the lesson you need comes from the life you least expected.